I'm going to give you just 2 seconds on my background, because I think it's one of the reasons you asked me to be here, because I'm a sommelier, but I think I'm a kind of little bit
I just assumed
strange
people knew
sommelier.
the rock star, yeah. But you go.
So I grew up in the Loire Valley. I've been in touch with wine quite late after studying philosophy, which I think helped me a lot about asking a lot of questions in my practices and putting back a lot of, really interrogating what I was doing. And that's really because I was studying philosophy. So I grew up in Loire, went to wine, and grew up in a region where we have a lot of movement of organic and biodynamic farming, which I studied and tasted and visited very early on in my career as I was working also in Michelin star restaurant and following a very, very classic background to Michelin star, tasting classic wines like from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s with like extraordinary cellar, while I was also tasting during the weekend a lot of old natural winemaker. I'm talking about I started in 2005, so 14 years in the stuff. So I was on my way to start competition too, so very, going into very hard. And at one point I had a choice to continue my career and I could become a sommelier in a 2 Michelin star restaurant, but I got hired by a company and I decided to change it was my first decision to change my career and to say I really want to do something a little bit different in the wine industry. I just don't want to sell wine for the 1%. I'm realizing there's a lot of issue with a certain type of parameter we're giving to certain wine, and I was growing in a region with certain grape variety was not, the top grape variety of the world. Muscadet, Melon de Bourgogne. You drink Montrachet, I'm don't drink Melon de Bourgogne. Doesn't make any sense. And so I was very lucky because I got contacted by a Belgian company, and instead of going into becoming a 2 Michelin star head sommeliers, they said, we're interested by you. We're building that program for a restaurant in New York, and it's going to be in a year, and I would like you to build a beverage program. The whole thing is about Sanitas per Escam. We want to build a new model of restaurant where you will eat better, really at a high quality of food in terms of aesthetics and gastronomy, but there will be also a nutritional parameter, not in terms of calories, but in terms of nutritional density. So what you're going to put in your plate is going to be richer, is going to be more satisfying. And we also want to do that in a green restaurant way. We want to build a restaurant and we want to operate the restaurant in a green restaurant. Are you on to take the beverage program? Are you interested to develop that? And it was like 2 Michelin star, Rouge Tomate, nobody knew about it. Well, I said, I'm going to Rouge Tomate. I spent a year working with nutritionists, scientists to build the beverage program. We opened New York. And I took the challenge in, what does it mean to, it was in 2008, what does it mean to drink good, to operate a restaurant where in fact you are my guest, you are coming. You don't need to know everything I'm doing. I just need to have you have a great time. Family, dates, business, dinner, whatever. You don't necessarily need to know what we are doing, but what we're going to do, we're going to provide you with an experience where we really thought about every single detail of what's going to come into your plate and your glass. And it made me study so hard to think, what should we drink? How should we buy? What does that mean? At every level. So it started with the farming. What are the impact of pesticide use in vineyard? Do we find them in a wine? And I had a nutritionist team and scientist team with me to help me to build that. What about additives into your wine? What does that mean? Is the impact on the health? How much alcohol can we consume? Can we consume alcohol? If we consume alcohol, how much for women? How much for men? Do we need to put that on the menu? How do we do that with spirits, with beer, with everything? And then the question, once you go to that part, is like, what about, there was a health part. The question after that was a green part. What does that mean when you open a restaurant in New York to do that? What does that mean in terms of carbon footprint? How I'm going to build my wine list in the Upper East Side, which is like super wealthy environment. We have a lot of ambition, a lot of money. What does that mean? Do I need to have this wine on my list? What about me getting wine from Europe or from Australia to the restaurant? What about the carbon footprint? Okay, let's go to the low-carb movement. I'm in New York. You know what? I'm going to develop the low-carb movement. 2008, in a restaurant that has a lot of ambition, that got a Michelin star within 8 months, I started to put on a lot of New York wine. Try to sell New York wine on the Upper East Side in New York in 2008. You do that, and then you realize a lot of New York wine are not organic, or there is a lot of, it's extremely difficult to grow vitis vinifera in Northeast America for obvious reasons. A lot of the pests we know are from that area. It's very complicated. So what do you take a cut? Do you take a cut into the green movement, or do you have to take a cut into using certain pesticide? What's the choice? Okay, maybe we should drink differently. We should drink something else. What about cider? New York grows cider is like weed. You know, you should drink cider. Try to have people drink cider in New York. It's impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's possible. And then I went on and was like, okay, I really want to have New York wine. And I discovered that 75% of Finger Lakes are grown hybrids. And I was like, if I really want to have an organic wine from New York for my restaurant that I can put in keg, try to sell wine in keg. Before that, in 2008, we started the program to be green and friendly. I had some wine in bag-in-box on the floor of my restaurant. No, seriously. We studied everything to be as green as possible. It was just impossible for us to sell bag-in-box wine on the Upper East Star in a Michelin star restaurant. We had two, and we really pushed them super, super hard. But even the choice was not there. So I went I was like, I really want to have an organic wine fund. I want kind of to check all the boxes from my restaurant. And I discovered the past of New York wine industry. And 75% are hybrids and 25% is unifera. And among these hybrids, you have original hybrids that are called natives. They have like American name, Delaware and Catawba, you know. And I was like, man, they're 150 years old vines. They are not treated. Some of them are organically certified. I can ask somebody to make wine like that without anything added, including sulfites, that I can put in a keg and I can have in my restaurant. And we did it. And we did it because I realized that you can change parameters on how the guests are drinking. What I could do with my keg, it took me 8 years to make that happen. But what I realized is, within these 8 years, two things. Me, as a sommelier, I was not trained to ask the right questions. We are trained and we are very, very good about learning appellation and grape variety and minimum alcohol percentage and all that. We lack an incredible amount of knowledge in viticulture and winemaking that are crucial. Because when you come to my restaurant, you are trusting me to give you something good. You are trusting me to give you something that's not going to hurt you. Feeding people is such an important act. I can poison you. You know, I deeply believe in that. And I realized, man, I don't understand how grapes are grown. And when I ask the question, I'm told, you can't understand our spray program. Like, you can't understand the molecule. Or you can't understand why I'm using this additive to the wine. And I realized we are not trained. So I realized I had to train myself to be able to really understand what was happening to make an educated guest. Because the problem is we don't know what's happening. We have a massive issue of transparency. I'm sorry. We have a big issue of transparency. We can talk about carbon footprint, but the rest is a kind of dirty secret in the business. We are selling the marketing on that. So I realized that. I realized we have to ask our distributor, or importer, or winemaker to have more transparency, to really understand what they are doing so we can support them. And we can understand why they are doing certain choices. That's the first thing. And the second thing I realized is our guests. They don't really know what they want to drink. Not in a very, very respectful way. They want to drink good wine. Of course, certain people, they want to drink Cabernet Sauvignon or Pinot. They may want to drink Von Romané or all that. But you realize quickly they really want to drink good wine unless you are talking about the 1% labeled drinker. And they're really exciting to try something new. If you really listen to what they want, one day it's a big, powerful, juicy wine. Awesome. Do you want to try something new? What about this Carignan from the Languedoc? Or you want something fresh and kind of a light Grenache? What about this Œillade that you never heard of, that I can offer you at a very low price on my wine list? And suddenly you realize you have to open up your box like crazy. And instead of trying to just sell the 13 main grape variety from the top grower, from the top region, because it's a name you need to have, because they are easily recognizable and they are easily sellable, you have to open up, and your guests are ready for that. I know it's kind of idealistic, and I say that because I'm a sommelier on the floor of my restaurant. On purpose, I decided as a career that I wanted to be on my floor, and I wanted to go one bottle at a time to have that explanation to my guests. But I deeply believe this is not impossible to say that. And I think in terms of the climate change, it's just, for me, one point of a way bigger conversation. And today, that bigger conversation, this is what I learned at Rouge, is less is more. At the end, the problem is we are spoiled. We are spoiled. We are in a luxury industry where we are over-consuming. We want things all the time at a good price, where we should learn a bit more moderation. You can't get everything all the time. You can't get a bottle of Montrachet every single day. You know, like, you need to learn to rediscover things around, because at the end, the pleasure you can get has been really culturally built. Our parameters, what today are Grand Cru or top wine, are cultural, like greed, that are current through a period of time. You read about what was drunk 150 years ago, it was different. So this is my contribution to that, and I think my point is two things. Respect my guests, educate my guests to open back their palate. They can taste so much more. There is so much more available closely and more further, all grape varieties, the nobility of so many grape varieties that nobody really cares about because they are not bankable. There is so many of beautiful grape varieties that we need to rediscover. Abouriou, Fer Servadou, I can tell you more and more and more. That's the thing. And me, as a sommelier, as a wine buyer, I need to ask questions to the people making the wine, and I need to ask for more transparency. Thank you.